Okay. Good afternoon. How y'all doing today? All right, all right. So, today you see that this was supposed to be between myself and my colleague, Dr. Reginald Akuɔko, Duah, but he wasn't able to make it, and I promised him I would not tell him that, tell anyone that's because of Galam Sebintina. And our title of the talk is Non-African Linguists Be Like. This is a new way to quote. It came about because of, well, I'll go into that. First, I'll give you the structure of the talk. Introduction, research questions, literature, hypothesis, methodology, addressing those questions, and then conclusions. So, introduction. Dr. Duah, he sent an email on the linguist list that we have at UG of a Boston Globe article that was entitled Linguists Are Like, Get Used to It. And it's talking about this quotative like. So basically it was talking about a developing trend in English which involves the use of the verb like to introduce a quote, thought, or a feeling. And it said that this is something that's new, especially starting from the 1980s, a recent trend, especially in Ebonics or Black English of the US. However, we found this quotative like going back far into the 1800s and 1900s, so we're contesting that with data. We continue. Similarly, from the other side of the globe in the area now known as Ghana for well over a century, there's been the development of the verb se, be like, into quotative like, and has been attested and well reported for Akan. So our research questions were, what is the nature of the correlation between like in Ebonics of the United States, so-called Black English, and se and Asante Tree? Is there any relationship? Also, is quotative like a recent development as claimed by some linguists? And then also, what are the bases for the development or grammaticalization of se or like into a quotative complementizer in Akan and Ebonics of the United States, so-called AAVE or Black English? We continue. So, in the literature on like, the earliest attestation of be like in a quotative function going back to Butters, 82, giving examples such as like, and he was like, let me say something. Or I thought that I was going to drown and I was like, let me live, Lord. Research on the origins of quotative be like has suggested that it developed from focus or like, such as in we watched this John Wayne movie that was like really bad. Black people don't use it like that. That's how Europeans would use it in the US. They'll say, oh, I like totally like, we use it in a different way where it's more like manner, and we'll come to that as well. So we continue. In the literature on Asante Tree, in some of the literature, it says that it developed the complementizer se from se. We find Osam, distinguished Amfo here. And then we have others who say it came from be like originally. We're going to put that debate on the side for a while and just deal with what we see in actual contexts in the data. So we give a putative diachronic development in both Asante Tree and Ebonics coming from like or se of similarity into reportative of manner like or se, and then going into quotative like. And we'll explain what those are. Our methodology, we were looking at our purposive selection of attested examples from various existing corpora, including transcriptions of interviews and natural speech, going back like finding Delaney, 1859, Chestnut, 1887, Turner, Smitherman, Green, also for Se, Opoku, 1969, Apia, and so forth and so on. So we had various corpora represented going back for some time. So our first research question is, what is the nature of the correlation between like in Ebonics of the United States and se and Asante Tree? Well, let's look at the like properties. It's used as a quotative to introduce a quotation or impersonation of the manner. Also a sort of quotation through simile. Not always a direct quotation, but gives you a general feel or approximation of either the words or even a situation. It collocates with verbs like be, say, think, go. He went like, he said like, these types of things. Also like used for enactments, verbal and nonverbal mimetic performances, idiophones, gestures, movements, facial expressions. Then he said like, ah! You can do that. All right, and said like we find similar things that can introduce a quotation or impersonation. It collocates with verbs like kan, bisa, jine, ne. Also used for enactments, verbal and non-verbal mimetic performances. And we argue that this is like, no pun intended, the Ebonics quotation through simile with the root meaning of se, resemble, or like as an exemplification of semantic persistence, grammaticalization. So even if it was ultimately derived from se, we say that this may represent a reanalysis, a semantic convergence with the pre-existing set, which is to resemble or be like. So we come to like in Ebonics. In Ebonics, like is used primarily as like of resemblance, and we'll give examples, similarity, approximation, reportative of manner-like, quotative-like. And in Asante, we find similar things where we have se of resemblance. We'll give examples, reportative, se, like, quotative, se, manner, or imitative. So let's give first like of similarity, resemblance, approximation. I don't mean to brag, I don't mean to boast, but we hot like butter on a breakfast toast. That Sugar Hill Gang, sometimes said to be the first rap to be recorded. He may be very sexy or even cute, but he looks like a sucker in a blue and red suit. So what we have is like followed by a DP, some type of noun or noun phrase going on here. Just giving similarity. Other examples, the sisters are on it like a hornet. A hornet, okay. Then like January, coming back to 1949, like a wave. I was looking like an old man, just like the rest. So this is just clear similarity. This is like that. And we find examples of that in Asante Chi as well. The child looks like the father, but he or she has a matriclan. That if a child does not look like the mother, then by all means it will have to look like the father. Or we would hope so. Something else is going on here. Duah and Woba na onkose omansane. The royal antelope or black duiker does not give birth to a child for it to go and look like a bushbuck. So these things are coming up, just similarity. Now we have going on to reportative like. Now you're reporting a situation. So like followed by an expression of manner or nature of a situation. And it works like standard American English as if or as though. So he come walking in here like he owned the damn place. So as though that was the situation when it may not be. They come walking in here like they was going to make us change our minds. So what it does, it gives manner over faithfulness to quotation and includes idiophones as I mentioned. And this is from a rap song. You'll get a punch in the nose like blam. All right? That must be a strong punch, you would think. And other examples going further back into the 1800s, reportative like reporting the manner. We have examples, come look at us like we were show. They're looking at us like we were some type of show. Act some sort of careless, like as if he just thought of it, as though he just thought of it, as though that was a situation. Other examples like he going to die for show, like he going to hurt somebody. Like he is mighty tickled about something, like he was very tickled about something. We'll continue. Now we find reportative set, and we have here etese wadijain. It's as though he or she has eaten a sheep. So it's again reporting the manner of the situation. It's as though. Ayanose odidi sanya is as though he or she has eaten out of a tin plate. So again, we're reporting how that situation may have been. We have other examples for the sake of time. I actually do want to do this. Obibo dia se maungu a and ya se or say ma onyan kan. So what we have different says here. Here we have the se, which is quotative. It's introducing the quote. We'll come to that. But here, this is reportative. This is as though he or she said. So we're using say to introduce the quote, but this is reporting that entire situation, right? we'll continue. So now our second research question is quotative like a recent development as claimed by some linguists. And we'll give early attestations of quotative like going back into the 1930s. And this is letting you know it's coming from manner. Him says brave like. Brave is the manner in which he said. I knows what it am simple, right? Start off singing something like, so we have like, and this is reported in the orthography of how it's spoken. Singing something like, Sally is a good gal. So we're using the like to introduce the manner in which the song was sung. And here, this is very clear that this is manner. And just as solemn like, when I gets big, so solemn. So sometimes you see them even linking it to the manner in which it's being done. And this is what we think that it comes from, at least in the Black English. Other examples, singing a mile away, them old songs like, introducing the quote, real sad like, sort of sing like, the Yankees are coming, here ladylike. So again, all of these are coming from manner. It's giving you similarity of how it was happening. It resembled this that I'm about to quote for you. We have other examples, but what we're saying is that when we see this like this, we're saying that's similar to like say, or can say, that we're describing like this, do something like this. So again, we're saying these are manner origins of quotative like. We'll continue for the sake of time. Other examples going back into the early 1800s, early 1900s. All of these, as you see, introducing quotes. And these are more recent. Women be like, nope, I ain't mad. And she just burned the man's car. Of course, she must really be mad at him. Girls be like, you my one and only. So you see how dark both of the parents are, and here's the very light child. So we think perhaps she was doing something that the man didn't know. Girls be like, yeah, I know how to cook, and look at the stove. On the other side, and these are things that you don't find captured on Corpora, but these are huge on the internet, the be like memes, if you just type it in. Dudes be like, you're beautiful, spelling it wrong. I be like, you're, right? Dudes be like, I'm about to take you on a shopping spree at the Dollar Tree, everything is $1. Here you see the orange here. Dudes be like, hit me up for exclusive beats, just 99 cents, and he has a little children's play toy for a xylophone to give you those exclusive beats. And then, so that's the be like quotative. Here we find similar things. Dear Wakane said, and Penyafono in Yina Anamu in Yimusio. Dear Nekane said, and Yeshi. So all of these nise, be like, just like how we saw in the Ebonics. Another example, Asema Bosom Bekane said, Ane, a Yahayo Sumai. So again, be like. Other examples, Okaine said, Kweko Sore, now yeah. So all of these be like is what we are interpreting these at. And in general transcription and translation, these are translated as that. But we're going to question or problematize that. That when, and we quoted this before, that if a funeral comes, we call the Palma man like chief. All right? Other examples, again, for the sake of time, but once they said Makaijum, you are Grumwa, once they said Makaijum, no, we want you to go. So. Other examples, all of these are basically giving the same thing. You see the set quotative like in order to introduce the quote very clear. So what are the basis for development and grammaticalization of said like into a quotative complementizer in Akan or Ebonics of the United States? That we think that the utility is the reason why. So they ultimately derive from a root meaning of similarity. Reportative, they provide the manner in which the situation happened. So it gives you a certain type of leeway. It allows for hedging, enactment, expressiveness, rather than an adherence to constraint of reproduction of the exact quote. So because of the utility, I can make my narrative so much richer. And I think this is also why we found it exploding in Englishes throughout the world, is because of the utility. So the basis of the establishment is because of this resemblance-derived form and narrative performance. And what we found on both sides of the water is a common African solution, both continental and diasporan, to a common linguistic program. How do I enrich my speech without being constrained? So in conclusion, we think that we may need to problematize standard white English as the global standard after which all other languages are evaluated and into which they are translated. Why do we have to translate it as that? When we see in black English, we have like to introduce a quote, we have like to introduce similarity. Here in Akan, we have said to introduce a quote, we also have said to introduce resemblance and similarity. Why do we need to translate it as that when in context they're doing the exact same thing and have the same meanings? Also problematize glossing African languages into white varieties of English over black ones. Perhaps we can translate or gloss the chi into Trinidadian English or Jamaican English or black English, as opposed to doing a detour. They are right beside each other, but we go all the way to the Queen's English and then we come back down here to make our comparison. That may be an unnecessary detour. Also, so why not translate from African languages directly into Ebonics rather than taking a detour through the Queen's English? So that's a quote, that's a question for you. For future directions, we want to research into non-obligatory collocation in Ebonics of the US, where like is used alone. We think that Ebonics of the US has progressed even further than it has in Asante Chi, to the point where you can just use like and you don't need be like, went like, or anything. Then she like, well, he talks to Jane before coming to me. She like, yeah. What do I say? Can you just help me? So all of this is just like. And then she like, bring back my change, right? So again, and research on the Akan case is research into related items which feature set, which we think are also related and come from this resemblance. Sedye, you're talking about the manner in which, like the thing, senya, ase, wobeko. So it seems like such and such would be the case. We think all of those are coming from the same resemblance, like as well. So in conclusion, yedamwasi, yamamuniti, thank y'all. Appreciate y'all.
Okay, I have a few questions, I'm sure. Yes, Brandon.
It's not really in relation to the questions or the answers we're seeking. But I was wondering, do you think this light in Ebonics travel from the African language that were used slaves into African-American varieties of English?
Yeah, I think that is very possible because I find things being preserved there that even have died out in the continental African languages, like the resumptive pronoun. Johnny, he don't like nobody. So Johnny and he. So we still find that there, but we find less of that except in certain few dialects of Fanti and things like that. I think it's very possible, but you see we skirted around that. We're thinking about doing follow-up papers, one to go in the middle of a gunfight between our scholarly father, Professor Osam, and Carol Lord. We said we're going to abstract away from that, but we want to do that. We also want to go into what are perhaps the origins, yeah. We haven't looked far enough into that, but that should be a thing. Yeah, and that's exactly what we're saying. Yeah, and even for the white American English, I think that even saying it goes to the 80s is like Columbus discovering people who are already there. That they're saying, look, we just found this thing. But I was reading Charles Chestnut in undergrad, writing in the 1800s, Martin Delany, and I said, when I read the article, I was like, this is ridiculous. I can right now pull up 100 examples of quotative like, and just growing up in North Carolina, we've always used it. So it wasn't, oh, we got it from California, whatever, as it said in some of the literature.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Reginald. Now, if we translate say as that, isn't it a matter of accessibility? Really? I mean, we would choose to call it the Queen's English, but really, isn't it a matter of accessibility? Rather than, translate it into a variety which is restricted.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. It goes into being perhaps pragmatic, at best, or we can say doing what is pragmatic over what may be more appropriate. So in any case, we have to weigh the two. should we do what is right or should we do what is practical? Because those sometimes aren't the same thing. For me, I think we're at least introducing the concept of saying, if for example, for me, I'm now in African studies, making these types of parallels is something that I'm seeing as something that's very necessary. So how come we can't enrich our own languages as opposed to what I find that sometimes we do is we do what we do with our natural resources. We get the theories from there, that's the tools, the bulldozers. Then we mine our African languages and then we give them back, for processing there. That as opposed to this one-way thing of saying, let's hand it over to them. Let's see what can we do amongst ourselves. If you have this and I have this, let's see what we can do, what may come of that type of scholarship as opposed to accessibility for whom. So just problematizing some of these things. I don't think it's a blanket solution that everyone should all do this one thing, but at least let's introduce this as something that can be done.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Interestingly, I'm hearing this Ebonics for the first time. Sometimes when you travel out, you hear people speak to you. In America, you hear people speak to people. Other times, you see, especially with the blacks, when they talk, you can hardly hear a thing. Yet you think they're speaking English, but you don't understand what they say. And when they tend to talk to you, they have a way of speaking the English so you understand. I want to ask, is this the Ebonics that you're talking of?
Yes.
If it is it for the literates or non-literates?
It's sort of like, okay, first
Is
off,
it a street language?
it's used on the street, but it's also used in other places as well. So it's not only a vernacular, and even for glossing it here, it's showing that it can be used even in a scholarly type of domain. But even for me, I've modified my English so that you can understand. I'm pronouncing my T's.
Even that.
Even that somehow, right? So even to say, let me pronounce my T's, let me pronounce my O's, and these types of things is a modification so that you can understand. If I was just talking regular, you probably wouldn't hear nothing that I was trying to say. You see what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about? So, but one thing that you find is that with Ebonics, it's a combination of various African languages. So sometimes you may find a penultimate type of thing that's like the Bantu languages. Sometimes you'll find things that are like the Niger-Congo, other things. So basically, it's a combination of all these African languages put together and using the lexicon to do it. So the syntactic structure tends to be the same. If you want to parallel, the closest thing you can find is Pidgin, perhaps, and especially like Nigerian Pidgin, where everyone can use it, from the bank manager, the school president, university, whatever. So it's not restricted only to a specific domain. It can be used all throughout.
Okay. Elvis had a question. Did you want to ask?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, would it not be like hedging? Okay, now I know. It's a form like people use.
I'm counting your likes.
He lives in the UK. That's why.
Yeah.
He is like lives in the UK.
So, no, I'm conscious, but let me speak about. So people might use it in the form of, how people use as a head. It's not the same way they use like.
This is the point that we were making, that the utility of it is that it can be used for hedging, and it can also be used for, like when I'm saying hedging, I'm saying that as opposed to giving you the direct quote. He said, I am going to the store. That's a direct quote. And I think say is used like that. When you say say, you're thinking that you're giving the direct quote. But if I say okase, I can have more leeway to say, but maybe that's not the exact words that he used, but the general sense that I got. And I think this is why it's exploding in Englishes throughout the world. India, UK, all over. You have this because they're seeing the utility of this African solution that's at least going back into the 1880s. So it said it came from the 80s. I was looking for the 18. They said 1980s. I said, no, there's a problem. But again, I think the utility of being able to give some leeway. I don't have to report it word for word, and in addition, I can enrich it because I can imitate you in such a way. Elvis said, yeah, can it be like? And then he said like, and then he said like, right? You were saying like, so now I'm adding more to my narrative than what you were even originally doing.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I think in order to be sure that it's going back to going back to transcripts of slave recordings,
Yes.
okay, or just transcripts of slaves, in fact,
Yeah.
in the 19th century. You need to look at similar dialogues, non-standard dialogues, in other varieties of English, in America, in the UK, in Australia, New Zealand, from the same period. Informal, you know, not standardised, people who are just writing as they speak. Now, I don't know, I haven't done the research, but it may well be that you find like, or whatever spelling is chosen, there as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're actually making a leap for us, really. You know, this comes from Africa, okay? It may be something that's inherent in all languages, and that something is, in colloquial speech. And I think you're absolutely right that something happened in the 1980s to make it explode. And you find it in other European languages as well, something similar kind of structure as
Sweden and other languages.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So there must be a cultural change that might, possibly that came from California, the cultural change, that global somehow. But, you know, I think we need to be aware a little bit of saying that these features come directly from West Africa. Well, actually, indirectly, actually, I suppose. But anyway,
I think this goes back to Jemima's point as well, what she was asking, is that we haven't said that it comes from Africa per se. We're saying that we find this coming from Africans on either side of the water, and we're saying that this is a common solution to this problem of how can we do our narrative like that. So I was saying, you know, I would like to do further research to see whether it's traceable from Africa or whether this is traceable from Africans on either side, that we said, how can we deal with this linguistic problem? And then we used it. I found your presentation as well with, in the UK, different non-standard dialects. I am, I was, be, you know, all those types of different things. I found those to be very, you know, interesting because, you know, if you look at the types of Europeans who Africans would have been in contact with, it wouldn't have been the upper crust who were speaking.
No, it was those people.
Yeah, it would have been those, the English, the Irish, and these types of people. At the same time, I would think that if we already had it in West Africa, this type of linguistic phenomenon, that we would be more likely, even when I hear Ghanaians speak English, I can say that person is thinking in Chi. The way they said it, they are using English words, but this is entirely a Chi thought. So I would think that if it existed, pre-existed in the African place that they came from, it would be more likely that they just replaced it with the English words than to say, oh, let's go and get it all the way from, you know, these Europeans who are raping us, lynching us, torturing us, murdering us. Let's go get, you know, their variety of speech. Yes. I think that would be more plausible.
Briefly.
At that point, I felt like it could also have traveled from Jamaican English into the British variety. I mean, on the side of it in Europe. Yeah. So in the UK, you still have the same thing, but then maybe you travel from the same source to Jamaican English and then to British or English.
I don't know if it's been investigated in Jamaican English.
Yeah, I'm not aware of it, but I think that all of these are lines of inquiry that definitely need to be pursued, so that we can answer these types of questions. Where did it come from? Why did it come from? But we see that there are tested sources going back further than the 1980s at least. So,
Thank you. Okay.